In this video, we are talking about Monstropolis coming to Disney's Hollywood Studios, but the way and the context we're talking about it is through the one, the only, Drew, the Disney dude, friend of the channel. We absolutely love Drew. First time reacting to one of his videos. We're going to talk about it, break it down. It's all about Monstropolis today on OG50. Let's go. Welcome aboard, everybody, to this episode of OG55. We've had the amazing Drew, the Disney dude, on the channel before. This time, we are going to react to some of his content. He has a phenomenal YouTube channel. I urge everybody to go over there, check it out, subscribe to him, show him all the love. And his video that we're reacting to today will be at the end of this video. So make sure you click on it and watch the entire thing, because we're not going to be reacting to the entire thing, actually. So if you want to watch the whole thing, and you should, check it out at the very end. But the Italiano, welcome back, sir.
Glad to be back on. And yeah, it's always a good time doing these reaction videos. And I'm super excited to react to one of Drew, the Disney dudes. As you said, we haven't done one on him yet. So it's always a good time having Drew on. You know, he's a very conversational type of person where we could just go hours and hours, you know, talking shop with him. So
we'll get him on again. Having Drew on the show is just, it's amazing. He's fantastic. But if we can't have him on today, at least we can have pseudo have Drew on the show by reacting to Drew, right?
Yes.
But if you can let everybody home know, George, where they can find you on social medias.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George.
Can they though, George? Can they though? Are they?
As of right now, yes. But again, not knowing for how long. Or you could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Sticky. Here we go. Let's go ahead and dive right into Mr. Drew, the Disney dude. So go ahead and smash that like button like OG just did, and make sure you subscribe. Amazing content creator. If you watch OG55, you know who Drew, the Disney dude, is. He's amazing. So passion for these parks, absolutely contagious. So George, are you ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Drew, the Disney dude. Here we go.
That's why I really hope that Disney goes all out. They give it the budget that it deserves. Monsters, Inc., I feel like, is one of those timeless intellectual properties at this point, and better late than never that we are getting it. I want to talk a little bit about the location, not too much because everyone's talking about that, and also when it could be opening. So let's dive into those details now. We know for a fact that this land has been on the table since at least 2020, to the point where final concept art was being done. And who knows, if the pandemic never happened, maybe this would have been announced in summer 2020. It's one of those things that we don't know. Not only that this concept art was done in 2020, you can tell that because of the artist signature. Greg Pro, he's an incredible Imagineer. If chances are, if you've seen Disney concept art, you've seen some of Greg's work. This is one of his pieces. But specifically, his inclusion here of this Mike Wazowski Loungefly backpack in the concept art. I know it might sound crazy that I'm talking about a Loungefly backpack in concept art, but this Loungefly backpack actually released in August of 2019. So,
nobody breaks things down like Drew.
No.
Like that's incredible. I never would have put two and two together with that. That is absolutely incredible. Love this. In
my mind, I feel like it makes sense to include something, you know, at the time, if he's doing this concept art in early 2020, that it makes sense to include something Monsters Inc. related that was released, you know, maybe 5 months prior at the time to when he was working on it. If this land was going to be announced in 2020, it makes a lot more sense to include an item that was just released rather than putting that in now when no one's going to be wearing it anymore because they don't sell it at the parks anymore. So even something as little as a Loungefly backpack that was released in the summer of 2019
and that's a great
this concept art.
And that's a great point. I'm really glad that he brought this up, right? Because at face value, it might seem like a very trivial detail, but it's not. This is very, very old concept art. Okay, it is. It's very old. So this is drawn up, like you said, probably in like 2019-ish, 2020-ish, whatever. So when people go through this, when fans go through this artwork and they're nitpicking this, like, oh, this over here, right? The water tower and the facade, that looks like monsters. It might have been. It might have been. But I mean, we know at Disney, plans change all the time. Look at the Epcot stuff, right?
Yeah.
Look how much the plans changed with that. The pandemic changed everything. So look, they might have at one time been kicking the tires for Monstropolis to replace Muppets, but that doesn't mean that's going to be the case now. And especially now, in hindsight, when they saw all the super fans getting really upset over the Rivers of America, do they really want another situation like that? I don't think Disney does, you know? So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I think Monsters is probably going to be safe.
Art was done in 2020.
You mean Muppets?
I mean,
so it's been on the table for.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. I think Muppets is going to be safe.
Yes.
Monsters is absolutely safe. Monsters
Yes.
is coming to town, you know? Yeah, thank you, George. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
A little bit, right? So that kind of leads into my next point, which is the aerial concept art. And I know a couple of people have talked about this, you know, the two different versions of concept art. But I think that concept art of the aerial view is the more.
Now, real quick, not to interrupt Drew here, but this is a slide that George and I just absolutely despise, right, George?
It's such an eyesore.
Yeah, I see what you mean, bro. It's monstrously ugly. No, but and all puns aside,
It raises the hair on my back.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's just not. Look, you can't get. I've said it so many times on the channel. You can't get mentally married to art, concept art, especially with Disney. But I don't know, man. You know, I think that you can build something for kids or something that's more leaning towards like children and not go like super cheap. You know, like for example, that I use all the time are the Fantasyland offerings at Disneyland. You have a beautiful carousel. You got these amazing little dark rides. Dumbo, kids love that area, Fantasyland, but it's not full of cheap, plasticky looking offerings. It's for kids for sure, or it leans towards kids for sure, but it's still a quality product. I really hope they don't go like that DreamWorks Land route, where there's a section of Monstropolis that has like the park tubes like this, like you see like at like local parks or like McDonald's play place. Come on, Disney, let's stay away from that stuff. You can do something that is more geared towards kids, but do it in a way that's a little more quality driven. And the thing too is like even with Toontown, I've said it a lot. Even with Toontown at Disneyland, a lot of that stuff reminds me of that slide, you know. And I don't think they should do it. I think they should move away from that stuff. Plus, this kind of stuff historically breaks, and Disney has to go in and fix it later because it's cheap and kids are climbing all over it and it breaks. I don't know why they insist on it. Again, we don't know for sure, but the art suggests that's what's going to be put there. I'm not a big fan of it. Anything you want to add, George?
Yeah, absolutely. As you know, I'm right there with you. Like when I remember actually seeing that, my eyes like geared towards that when we were at the Honda Center, and I'm looking at that like really like a spiral slide that is like in a playground kind of environment that has like the color and pattern of Sully, like that's not cool. But what actually kind of saves it for me in the sense is because when I look at this piece of concept art, I'm wondering if this is an even older piece of concept art, because you got to think this project in particular goes all the way back to like the early like 2010s ish.
You know what this looks like to me is hide and go peek over at Tokyo Disney.
Yes. And if you actually look, if you like literally like nitpick the details in this thing, it actually looks less detailed than what Muppets looked like not Muppets, but like the previous concept art where it looks like it's in Muppets Courtyard.
Right.
So if Muppets Courtyard was in danger or on the chopping block, if you will, around 2019, 2020, but it had a more detailed version, I'm wondering, if this is like a much older piece of concept art, and they just happen to use it just so people can get the idea of, hey, it's going to be the Monsters Laugh Factory in this area.
Yeah, no, I think this one and the other piece, I think were basically just put out there to kind of give people like a visual idea of like what kind of to expect. I wouldn't put too much weight into either one of these pieces of art because, like you said, George, I think, well, the other one we know for sure is older, and this one I think is older too. I would agree with you. So yeah, interesting. And plus, like Drew was saying, they might not even know where this is going yet. So how do you have any kind of art without even knowing where it's going? Because based on where it's going, the shape of the land and all that's going to be different, you know?
Exactly.
More recent view and the more current, up-to-date piece of concept art. Because if Disney is just announcing this project now, then obviously there's been a ton of work done behind the scenes since 2020, where the concept art was done with solely on the ground view. I think that the aerial view is the most recent piece of art done specifically for the reveal at D23. And that also lines up with not only that the land just looks different, but like if you look at the location of Harryhausen's, right? With Harryhausen's in the 2020 concept art, it's right in front of the show building. But with this other concept art, it's at the very front of the land in the bottom left corner, not even close to the show building. But I think that this confirms that Disney actually might have, at some point, even right now, are still wondering, where are we going to put this land? Normally that wouldn't be possible.
See, that's very interesting. He's saying that he thinks this aerial shot is newer. That's a possibility too. That's a possibility too. I don't know. We'll see. That's fascinating.
Because of all the work that has to happen beforehand to get the land ready, all the plans ready, so that whenever a project goes vertical, the plan is done at that point. But this could be a very rare situation where Disney actually has two plans completely ready to go, or almost at the point where this current version is at the point ready to go, where they could greenlight either one. And maybe that's why they didn't say anything, right? If you're looking at the reactions online to Muppet Vision 3D right now, Disney fans, at least in the online social media community, love Muppets. Personally, I've always liked Muppet Vision. I've never loved it to where I'm a diehard fan of it. But what I will say is that the Muppets are owned by Disney, and Walt Disney Imagineering has full control over the Muppets. Everything Disney has been doing is IP related. Why would you get rid of your own IP when everything you're doing worldwide is based around your own IP?
Right.
I just don't like that decision if it happens again. No confirmation of where this land's going yet, but
yeah, and that's a great point that Drew brings up, is like, why get rid of your own IP? Muppets, look, it's not, Muppets aren't the hottest IP right now, obviously. They haven't been like super relevant for a little while, let's be honest, right? But I still think that people love them, absolutely, you know? Mm-hmm. But why would you opt to remove that when you have Rock and Roller Coaster, which isn't your IP, that you really should be removing at this point, right? When you have things like the Animation Courtyard, which is a shell of its former self, like, but you're going to remove Muppets? Now, here's the other thing too. I love Muppets. I really do. I think they're a great franchise. But at the end of the day, eventually, we're going to have to address Muppet Vision because it's getting dated. And eventually we're probably going to come to a point when we're going to have to remove it. I'm not saying it's going to happen now. I really don't think Monstropolis is going to be the thing that replaces it. But eventually, how long are you going to keep this? I understand that it's Jim Henson's last work, and they should preserve that in some way. Maybe build, like I said before, like a Jim Henson museum where you can play it on loop and you can walk in there and watch it and stuff like that. I think that'd be really cool. But as a theme park, there comes a point when when something becomes so dated, it's almost like bad show. And with the CGI and all that that they have in that show, it just looks so outdated. And look, fans can make the argument that you can go in there and you can update the CGI. But if you go in there and tinker with the product, is it even Jim Henson's at that point anymore?
Yeah, exactly. It's not its originality. So you're basically having to like pick like the lesser of the two evils, you know, because at some point you're right, it's going to have to change one way or the other. I can't foresee another 20-30 years and that original Muppet Vision 3D is still going to be in the park.
It shouldn't be, because I think there comes a point when it looks so dated it becomes bad show. I've said the same thing actually with Island of Adventure, the superhero island. There comes a point when it just looks so dated that it looks bad. You can paint it a million times over, but it still looks outdated. Muppet Vision is one of those things where it's kind of the same vibe.
Basically, the whole entire Islands of Adventure is outdated at this point.
It is, and I get it. I get it that they want to hang on to it as long as they can because you don't want to give your rival a moneymaker, the MCU, basically. I get why Universal's holding on to it. I don't blame them at all, but it's outdated. Eventually it looks bad. It's a bad show. And I think same with Muppet Vision. Eventually when you go in there and you see CGI from like 30 years ago, when did that show premiere? Was it 90?
I believe it was 19. Well, Henson passed in 1990, so it had to be the early 90s.
Like CGI as old as you.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Literally as old as you, bro.
Yeah.
Come on, And like I said, if you go in there and start changing the CGI and updating it, it's no longer Jim Henson's last work. Now you've gone in there and you special editioned it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. The Muppet conversation is something that we're all as a fandom are going to have to come to terms with eventually. Eventually, that show, maybe they'll keep Muppets, but eventually that show is probably going to have to be sunsetted. It's the reality of the situation. But as of right now, I think it's safe. But we'll see.
Yeah.
It's playing. Don't get rid of your own IP. Makes absolutely no sense. Now, when you go over to Animation Courtyard, right? Everyone's like, oh, well, this is a no-brainer to put Monsters, Inc. in an Animation Courtyard because they can remove the buildings backstage. That frees up the space for
really
the
quick
show building.
Yep, I got you.
And then you save them up.
This part right here is what literally caught my attention. A great video that Drew did all around, but this part in particular is what gave me the idea to bring to your attention that we should do this reaction video, because I think this point that Drew makes is very fascinating that a lot of people don't necessarily think about, and this is what I think is going to be basically the headline of this whole conversation.
Interesting. All right, let's see.
You get this land, it's a win-win, right? But what everyone is forgetting is that all of these announcements that were just made at D23 is only the first 5 years through the end of 2029 of this 10 years of investment that Disney has announced, where they are saying they are turbocharging Disney experiences with this $30 billion, $30 billion with a B of investment. So everything they just announced is the first 5 years, right? Chances are right now, as I'm talking to all of you, Disney is already drawing up early concepts for those next 5 years from 2030 through 2034. There is going to be another wave of massive announcements for the back half of this decade for announcements. So if Disney makes the decision to replace Muppets Courtyard with the Monsters, Inc. land, maybe that's because they already have another plan in development for Animation Courtyard further down the road. And I think that that's a very real possibility, right? At D23, The Incredibles 3 was announced. Incredibles 3 could very well make $1.25 to $1.5 billion at the box office. People go crazy for The Incredibles. So it would not shock me at all if Disney decides to go with the more effective option to unfortunately replace Muppets Courtyard with Monsters, Inc. land. And then in 2029, for example, they announced that in Incredibles land is replacing Animation Courtyard, right? If that's going to be on the second half of this 10 years of investment, and by that point, Incredibles 3 would be out. Like, we don't even know when Incredibles 3 is coming out.
Right.
So these things take years, and there's years of planning here. So even if Disney doesn't replace Animation Courtyard right now, it's not necessarily a bad thing because that saves that prime, valuable land for another land that could be coming down the road. So I'm seeing a lot of people thinking about just this project, but it's never just the current thing. There's always something happening behind the scenes that we don't know about. And there's always more options that could happen. From Zootopia, right? We have Zootopia 2 coming out. Like I just said, we have The Incredibles.
Yeah, I love this point that Drew's bringing up. That fans are very tunnel vision and they look at this thing. And it's not just this thing. It's not just Monstropolis that they do this with. It's with everything. Mm-hmm. It's with absolutely everything. It's tunnel vision the whole time. Look, the Avengers campus over here in California, they saved room behind Mission Breakout for an e-ticket. We all know that was eventually going to go there, right?
Right.
Like this was a plot of land that they were planning to use in the future eventually, right? This is how Disney operates. They are very forward thinking with this stuff. They're thinking like years in advance. You know what I'm saying? So what Drew's saying here, when it's like, yeah, just because they don't get rid of the animation courtyard right now doesn't mean that it won't get replaced. He brings up a great point, because you know what? Maybe they do have stuff in the future like Incredibles, or like he's saying Zootopia, or something else that they want to also add to this park that is right now in early development stages. But as fans, we don't know that. We just look at the here and now because that's all we know. So
exactly. And that's the problem with the fandom and the community. It's like, again, I call it the Farouk assault syndrome. It's like everybody like has to know now and want it now. And it's like, Disney is not obligated to tell you every little piece of detail that's going on, because as fans, we should already know. Disney has said this time and time again. WDI said, we don't look just right now into the present. We're looking into the future. We're looking at 5, 10, 15, even 20 years down the road.
Right.
And yeah, Drew's absolutely correct, where they can't have two separate offerings of where Monsters Inc. can go, where it's like, yeah, okay, well, we could save Muppets for right now, put Monsters Inc. in Animation Courtyard, but down the road, if they do want to do something with Zootopia or Incredibles, it may not fit well in Muppets Courtyard like Monsters does. So they might have to sacrifice Muppets now for Monsters so that Incredibles or Zootopia could fit in where the Animation Courtyard is.
Exactly. This is all about, a 10-year plan, basically, and just because we only see, or we're only privy to the information of the first 5 years doesn't mean that there isn't a plan for the next 5. And, we don't know the bigger picture yet. So it's fascinating.
Exactly. Yeah,
I love that he brought this up. This is a fantastic point from Drew. Fantastic.
It really is. I watched this whole entire video. And again, we encourage you, everyone, it's going to be linked down below. Watch the video in its entirety. It's really good. But this particular moment of the video, I thought was, is a great conversation piece. And that's what gave me the idea to literally, for this video. But it's a give or take. It's a tat for tit for tat. And we all know what I like.
Watch your mouth, young man. Watch your mouth.
There's so many possibilities for Disney's Hollywood Studios where you are wanting to bring guests, where Disney is wanting to bring guests into the movies. Monsters Inc. Land is just the beginning, in my opinion, of what's going to be invested in Hollywood Studios. We already know that Lightning McQueen's Racing Academy is closing for the Disney Villains show coming in summer 2025. So we're already getting announcements for things that were announced after D23. Disney is clearly investing a ton into the parks. They are very serious about this, but you have to think about the big picture from Disney's perspective. Take yourself out of the picture. Take me out of the picture. Look at it from a business perspective. They have 10 years of plans here. We only know about 5 of those, and this Monsters Inc. Land is a part of that first 5. So think about that going forward and what Disney could be thinking about that we don't know about yet. Now, this kind of leads directly into the opening time frame, right?
So fascinating video from Drew. And like I said, this is only a little part of that whole video. I am adding this to the cards at the very end of this video. So make sure you wait for that and click on it and watch the full thing, because amazing. First of all, we love Drew, and he makes amazing content, and he dives into stuff like we do over here on the channel. So if you're not familiar with him or his work, I highly suggest you head over there and watch Drew, the Disney Dude. So George, I'm glad you brought this to my attention, because I haven't seen it yet, and I'm glad that you brought it to my attention, because he brings up a lot of great points here, and a lot of self-reflection too with the fandom. And I like to do a lot of that here on the channel. And a lot of people get upset with that. The fans never want to look inward, though. They never want to look inward. Like, maybe the fans approach things the wrong way. Is it possible that maybe we don't see things like the right way always? And fans don't want to hear that, but it's true. Like, sometimes fans have this tunnel vision where they assume that what we know is all Disney's doing. We saw it with Portos. We saw it with Portos, where people were saying that Portos was canceled because we haven't heard about it in 3 months. And it turns out it's not canceled. It's very much happening. It's been Just because as a fandom we don't hear about it or we don't know about it or we're not privy to that information, it doesn't mean there aren't things behind the scenes that are being worked on, being planned on. And that's what I think the crux of Drew's argument is with this one. And I think he makes a great point. So we'll see, you know, and again, it's all speculation. We don't know. I mean, they could replace Muppets. They might not. We'll see. But I think it's definitely a valid point on his part where it's like, we're only privy to the first 5 years. We don't know the last half. And These theme parks are physical places. It's a giant jigsaw puzzle. So you have to sort of adjust things and plan for future investments, just like they did at Avengers Campus. They built that building without the ride behind it because they knew eventually they're going to build a ride behind it, right? You plan for the future. Disney does this all the time. Time.
And we were only expecting one Avengers attraction to be added to the campus. We're getting two, you know?
We're getting two.
And it's like nobody knew about it.
Nobody knew. Exactly. But
then with the Monsters Inc. area, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Josh D'Amaro said that they will start breaking ground on construction sometime in 2025.
Yeah, I believe that's what he said. Yeah. So that's coming up. It's coming up. So we'll see. It's exciting. I liked Hollywood Studios a lot. I was surprised. I went into Walt Disney World for my very first trip last summer or summer of 2023. And I went into that trip thinking Hollywood would be my least favorite park. And I left Florida with Magic Kingdom being my least favorite park. I wasn't expecting that, but it happened. I guess I should have expected it though, because a lot of Disneylanders aren't impressed with Magic Kingdom.
I think a lot of Walt Disney Worlders aren't really impressed with Magic Kingdom right now.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And that's why I support the Rivers of America thing, because it'll give that park a little bit more of its own identity and separate itself.
Exactly.
As opposed to being Disneyland light, which it feels like right now. You know, Remember, Mission Breakout was Hollywood Tower of Terror light. But when they made a whole new theme and a whole new thing to it, it brought its own uniqueness to the table. And now it became its own thing, right? No one compares Mission Breakout now to the Hollywood Tower over in Florida. They're two completely different experiences. I think that benefited the attraction in DCA by being completely different. When you tried to be Florida's version, but you didn't quite get there, and you're like the diet Tower of Terror, your Tower of Terror light, you're just you know, 0 calories, you know, Tower of Terror. The comparisons are always going to be there, and it's always going to be less than, you know. And I feel like with the Rivers of America over there in Magic Kingdom, let's be honest, does it compare to what we have at Disneyland? No. So why not build something new in there that can be impressive in its own right, and then stand out where you're like, yeah, Disneyland has Rivers of America and it's absolutely beautiful, but Magic Kingdom has this amazing, beautiful Cars area too. It's something unique. It motivates me to go to Florida. This is a different experience I won't get here in California, you know? So
yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned that you would want it to have it stand out, because we see eye to eye.
Yeah, exactly. I always love a Goofy movie reference. You can't go wrong with that.
Absolutely. But, really quick, just to your point, and I hate comparing Disneyland to Walt Disney World and vice versa for that point, but it's just the reality of the fact that Disneyland has a lot more things going on than going into Magic Kingdom right now. And by adding the Cars area and the villains, that adds 4 more attractions, 2 more lands into Magic Kingdom. And they need it right now, because literally everything that you can find at Walt Disney World, as far as attractions go, you could basically find just in Disneyland Park alone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's interesting. So we'll see. Like I said in a video recently, when we've reacted to Hey Bricky, it's an exciting time to be a Disney Parks fan. And like I said, fans, you're not going to love every single change. But when you beg Disney to turbocharge and you beg Disney to invest in these parks, you're just going to have to realize some of the investment isn't going to be your cup of tea. That's just the way life works. And that's okay. That's okay. And if the parks have become so terrible where you don't like any of it anymore, all the new stuff sucks, vote with your wallet, walk away. Hey, I'm voting with my wallet. I used to have a blue check on Twitter. I don't anymore. I'm not going to give Elon any money because I don't think he's run the site very good. You know, and I've talked to George. we're even thinking about just kind of walking away from Twitter altogether, not deactivating, but just maybe not spending that much time on it. We're voting with our attention, which on social media is currency. Basically, your attention is currency, you know? So you have to put your money where your mouth is, you know? If you don't like every new thing that Disney's doing and the parks just aren't the same for you because of Lightning Lane and this, that, and the other, vote with your wallet, you know, go somewhere else, go to Universal. And I'm not being snarky about it. I'm being honest. Go to Universal. Yeah. Go somewhere that is more in line with what you're looking for, you know?
And that makes you happy. That makes you more satisfied, because I'm so sick and tired of hearing about the doom and gloom and bitching and moaning and complaining. It's like,
I think everyone is, to be honest.
Why do it to yourself? Why be so irritated and negative all the time? And I get it. It could be frustrating that you just don't like something, but guess what? As you said, that's life. You know, who loves, you know, really going to work every day to pay bills? You know, it's like, but guess what? You have to do it. Well, here's the thing. You don't have to do this. You actually have a choice.
You have a choice. Vote with your wallet, vote with your attention, vote with whatever you can. You're good. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. Anyway, we kind of went off in a little bit of a tangent there, but because I do see it kind of isn't a tangent, because a lot of people are complaining a lot about these changes at Disney World.
But it also ties into the conversation, because just as Drew was saying, that, you know, people just tend to look at it just through a one-sided note, right? You know, and it's like, you have to look at the bigger picture. Look at it through the optic lens of Disney as a business.
Right. No, exactly. No, I know. Some fans don't have that. They can't see the business perspective. They can't see, well, I can see why they're doing it. Like, for example, Rivers of America. I know if you love the Rivers of America, I understand and I sympathize with you why you're upset. But can you also see, at least Disney's perspective? Why are we going to pour millions and millions of dollars into fixing this river or whatever technical issues it's having, when we can put something in there that the normies are going to love? The normies want cars. The normies want the Cars thing. The normies want the Elsa thing. I'm sorry, fandom. The normies don't want Western River Expedition. That's nerd shit. That's what we love. The soccer mom doesn't want that. They want the Cars thing. And so Disney's got to go with what the masses want, not what our little corner of the fandom wants. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times fans can't see that, though, you know? So I don't know. And on Twitter and platforms like that, you cast a big shadow. Like on Diz Twitter, it seems like our community is bigger than it really is, because we're in this kind of bubble where we're all talking to each other all day long, and it seems like really loud. But we're like this big in the overall scheme of things. Yeah, this big, you guys. Okay, we're not a huge voice, believe me, compared to, you know, all the millions and millions of people out there that go to Disney parks. You know, so
yeah, we're not the Hulk. We're Ant-Man.
Yeah, we're Ant-Man. Exactly, George. Exactly. But George, where can everybody find you on social media besides X?
Yep. Well, for the time being, yes, you can still find me on X, formerly known as Twitter for now, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Sticky, icky. Hold on. You know, I haven't done a sticky drop in a while. Let's do some sticky. Gotta love Julie, Natty, and Belle. Piece of life. Let's go. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching this episode of OG 55. Make sure you comment down below with all your thoughts. Make sure you check out Drew the Disney Dude and subscribe to him on YouTube if you haven't already. Please subscribe to him. Fantastic guy. Great content. Check him out. Italiano, OG, out.